This is Chapter 4, Section 1, the New Industrial Revolution. In the 1880s, the United States went into what is referred to as an industrial revolution. Some of the factors that contributed to this industrial revolution was that the United States was mining vast amounts of natural resources. We talked about that in previous chapters, that mining throughout the United States became very popular. Coal, iron, lead, and copper were being found in mass quantities. And also, the United States government had high tariffs, which meant they had high taxes on the goods that were being imported. This was to promote American businesses, so Americans can buy American-made products and putting the money back into the American economy and not specifically European economies. Some of the technological advancements and inventions came during this age to help the Industrial Revolution kick off. During this time, many inventors were creating new machineries that just made it easier to produce more goods and quicker and better. So one of these processes that helped start the production of steel was the Bessemer process, which is a method of making stronger steel at a low cost. Not to get too scientific, but this is what it looks like. You can still see some of these around Pittsburgh, not being used. They have them on display in different areas, especially in the city. I know there's one on the south side. But this was just a way to make stronger, cheaper, more durable steel. So specifically in Pittsburgh, it was the perfect place to make steel. Why? Because there was nearby coal mines. I think everybody, specifically we live in like southwestern Pennsylvania. There's a lot of old coal mines, and a lot of people are around. You can almost see where the old coal fields are and everything like that. So that is very much in our communities. But the coal was used the blast furnaces to heat up the iron ore and other elements to make steel. And also that Pittsburgh's location on the Three Rivers made it ideal for transporting the steel to different parts of the country. Pittsburgh is known as the Steel City, and it produced as much steel that was used. They used all the infrastructure. This is infrastructure, the steel I-beams and everything. It pretty much during this time, all the steel made in the United States to build those big skyscrapers and everything like that was made in Pittsburgh. Also, Pennsylvania first, the first oil was drilled out of the ground in the United States in Titusville, Pennsylvania, which is a couple hours north of us. It was the nation's first oil strike. And oil at the time, and it is still now, is used for many different purposes. Lubricants for machinery, to make plastics. Oil, eventually when the automobile was invented, it runs on gasoline and oil. Gasoline comes from refined oil. Oil is so valuable in so many uses, and it's used for so much that it's known as black gold. So these inventors, during the 1880s and 1890s, Americans saw, all these new inventions being created. So when you create something, you need a patent so no one steals it. So you have to go to the patent office and you pay this money, and it's this document giving you the sole right to make and sell whatever you invented. And it helps from anybody stealing your idea. So patents also allow them inventors to profit from their inventions without someone stealing their ideas. So, something like the iPhone here, certain kind of chairs, the Lego man. So they all have patents. So I'll give you an example, that you might look. So Ford kind of has a patent on this tailgate step. That's kind of their thing. I actually have this on my truck. It's only Ford has this set up. No one else can use it. So Chevy had to come up with their own, and that they have like a corner step bumper, so they have a patent on that. So Ford can't take their idea, and Chevy can't take Ford's idea. So that's kind of how it works. This is probably the best method, but Chevy can't take it because Ford owns the patent. So Thomas Edison, everybody pretty much knows who he is, but he was an inventor that set up a research lab in New Jersey, and they just invented, him and his team invented hundreds of things. The light bulb, motion picture camera, the phonograph, which is a stereo. This is the phonograph here. And New York City, Edison opened up the first central power plant. So Thomas Edison did not invent electricity. He invented the light bulb. And he was, okay. So a central power plant allowed people to have electricity to their houses so they can power those light bulbs. Their homes, their streetcars, and factories now had light. So the communication revolution, Cyrus Field created the first transatlantic telegraph. This cable connected the United States and Europe for faster communication. As you can see, it was literally laid on the ground, across the Atlantic Ocean. And that's a long telegraph line, but it transmits and receives messages. That's what a telegraph is. So it's like that. That clicking, it's like click, 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 click. That's all code. That's that Morse code, So that you have to learn how to read the code, but that's what it was. It was just a series of clicks. But that was the first time, the United States and Europe, they can communicate almost instantly. So the big one, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. So the telegraph was great, but you couldn't actually transmit voice or any other sounds except for the clicks. But the telephone was created so you can actually transfer sound through the wire. It was an instant phenomenon, and by 1885, 300 telephones were sold. So as you see some of the early telephones, you kind of had two pieces to work with here: one to listen to, one to talk. He created the American Telephone Company, that provided service and of linking the telephones together. Christopher Sholes, he invented the typewriter. This vastly sped up the process of writing. Before it was all handwritten. This just was revolutionary because you could just type faster, 60 words a minute, and your hand wouldn't die out on you like you would by handwriting it. And then George Eastman invented the lightweight camera. Before, cameras were big, heavy equipment that you had to lug around, and pretty much only professionals could take a picture. But he invented this small little box that was used to take a picture. So now individuals can now take pictures. So you can thank George Eastman every time you take a selfie for having like this mobile camera. All right, transportation improvements. Pretty much before, during the Civil War and a little bit after the Civil War, how to get around was horse. So pretty much all throughout time, thousands of years, the only way to get around was either walking or by horse. Then the train was invented, and then you have the car. So that all kind of happened in the 1880s. And there was disputes of who actually invented the first car, but it was a European. And pretty much the automobile changed the world because it allowed individual people to travel farther, faster. And Americans did not invent the car, and the Europeans did. So it seems like we like to take credit for that, but we did not. Henry Ford. By 1900, only 8,000 Americans owned cars, and that's like hardly any. Cars were still a luxury, even though they was invented in the 1880s. A lot of people didn't have them. They were expensive, unreliable, hard to work on, hard to get parts. So it took a lot of maintenance. It wasn't really feasible. It was kind of like a luxury item. But Henry Ford thought that all Americans should be able to afford a car. So Ford perfected a system to mass-produce cars and make them available at lower prices. The cars were going to be mass-produced quickly, efficiently, and affordably. So how to make all this happen was the assembly line, which is a manufacturing method in which products are put together as it moves along the belt. So you can see there's a car, that's kind of a shell of a car. It's moving down the line. Everybody puts a piece on. Unskilled laborers can do these jobs and do it very well because they just repeat the task. If their job is to put the steering wheel on, they do it hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a week. They know how to put that steering wheel on. So they don't know how to build the entire car, but they know how to do that one step. So if each worker knows how to do their one step perfectly, the process just works flawlessly. And it cut the production in half. So this is kind of like the early assembly line with the Model Ts. And then they still kind of do the same thing with modern cars. You have one person doing one thing, and people are even getting replaced by machines. There's the assembly line with the machine. Each machine does a certain task. Thanks to the assembly line, the price of cars dropped immensely, but there weren't many options for the Model T since they kind of made everything the same, and that's what kept the price down. Everything the same, ship them out, make it affordable. Henry Ford said you could have any color car you want as long as it's black. There just weren't a lot of options. Now with cars, there's a ton of options. You can get what size wheels, what size engine, what color, interior choice. But back then, to keep the price down, they just had pretty much one standard car, not very many options. So by 1917, more than 4.5 million Americans owned cars. And so in a short period of time, Ford kind of revolutionized the industry. So that's a great picture of a Model T. It didn't have windows or anything like that. Smaller tires. They're actually wooden spokes. That's what it is, and that's what a picture of an early Model T might look like. And the Wright brothers, they've tested the first gasoline-powered plane in 1903, and the airplane stayed in the air at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, for 12 seconds and went 120 feet. Planes weren't an early success. First of all, they were expensive. They weren't able to fly too far or for too long. But it gave it some time, and pretty much like the world's military has really perfected the plane. It made it very popular, and it showed how effective they were in travel. And even in World War II, they would strap guns to these planes, and they would have battles in the air. So after the World War I, planes became very popular. That concludes Chapter 4, Section 1.